If you ever feel like life's happening too fast and you've got no time to cry, you're in the right place. Happy New Year. Welcome to No Time to Cry Pod. It's been a while, guys. It's been a while. Did I ghost my own podcast? Probably would count as that, wouldn't it? Laura and I were supposed to have a week off of recording. We are now, 9 months down the line, maybe 10 by the time this comes out. So I would say that classes as a proper ghosting. Yeah, I wanted to come back. I'd put the podcast down and I'll get into exactly why that is. You'll notice I'm by myself. The lovely Laura, unfortunately, just hasn't got the time to dedicate to the pod at the moment, but she is full-blown adulting, like in the midst of new job, coming back off maternity leave. She's just moved house. Sometimes it just gets like that, right? So rather than delaying it, bringing it back altogether, because things are probably only going to get a bit busier for Laura, we thought, well, I'll bring it back. I'll start doing it. And then if Laura's ready to jump back in, then she is always welcome to join me. And she may pop in as like a guest here and there anyway. So hopefully you won't miss her too much. I'm hoping not all of you were joining each week just to listen to Laura. Because you're going to be really disappointed if you're just going to have me moving forward. So there's slightly different format to this pod, slightly different topics. So we'll go over that today. And then if you're joining for the first time, welcome. Give us a subscribe, follow, rate, review. You'll find us on all of your platforms. If you're listening, great. Hope you're looking forward to hearing more of my dulcet tones. If you're watching, you'll notice I'm in a new environment. We always used to record in Laura's house, which again makes things quite difficult because me and Laura actually don't live that close. We're about 45, 50 minutes away. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. I'll do a bit of a recap for anyone that's kind of joining for the first time. So this podcast predominantly used to be about me and Laura and talking through grief mostly. Both of us lost a parent a couple of months apart and we were best friends anyway, but we really bonded over that in terms of being a support network for each other. And then we got into, well, what is grief? It's not just death, it's relationship breakdowns, it's friendships, it's everything else. And then whilst we've had some time off, I actually thought, well, this podcast could be so much more than that. Actually, it's just about what is being an adult. Like, it is hard graft. And if any of you are finding it super easy, please send some advice my way, because this last 9 months for me has been some of the most exciting, but actually some of the most challenging. And that is had a lot of adulting in there. A lot of things that, you should be excited over and you should be like, oh my God, I'm growing up. I'm moving house. I'm planning a wedding. I'm, looking at my future of my career. What am I doing? And boy, did it hit me like a ton of bricks. So we'll kind of go back to what happened at that time while we took a bit of a short break. But essentially, Laura was having some family that was poorly at the time and just, had to prioritize family, which I completely agree with. And it actually felt quite insensitive at the time for me to record on my own. So we just said, right, let's take a couple of weeks off. Let's make sure that your family are okay. That's always comes first, always above the podcast. At the same time, I was moving house. And I don't know how many of you have kind of moved house before. I'm sure a lot of you would have. It is so stressful. And we had buyers pull out, new buyers come in, found out only like a couple of days before that we were definitely moving that week. We got into the house a week later, the boiler broke. It was just like a series of unfortunate events. And again, super privileged to be able to move home. But when you've got to record and you've got to edit and you've got to publish a podcast, like I just didn't have the brain space. And I think that's the whole point of this podcast and what I want it to be moving forward is actually we need to talk about that, having a break, having these little times where you go, do you know what? I can't put everything into it all the time. I've got to be able to take that space for me, take that time and go, I can't give everything. What can I give? What can give me a little bit of space? What can help me breathe? And it's exactly that. It's like, I need to be able to breathe. I need to be able to function, and I can't do everything. And unfortunately, the podcast was just something that I had to put down at that time. But yeah, listen, I think life gets loud sometimes. Like, there's parts of your life where you're like, oh my God, there's too much noise. There's too much to do. There's too much to plan. And I'm hoping that's not just me, but it feels like the last kind of 12 months has been really, really noisy. It's like, shut the hell up. And I mean, I'm to blame for some of that. No one told me I had to move house. No one told me I had to plan a wedding. No one told me I had to kind of have a think about what I'm doing with jobs and work. And obviously, grief still kind of runs into the mix of that throughout that as well. But it's just a really tough time. And I think when you get to like your ends of your 20s, like into your 30s, I don't know about you guys, but when I was a teenager or a kid, I was like, oh yeah, by the time I'm 30, I'll have everything together. I'll know what I want to do. I'll know this. And like in the grand scheme of things, I'm in a good position, right? I'm in a stable relationship. I've got like planning to get married. I've got a house. I've all of those kind of things, but that doesn't actually mean you've got your shit together. Certainly not mentally for me. It's been like a turbulent year in terms of like my anxiety, how I feel about stuff, how I'm looking after myself. And if any of you listened to the podcast previously, you'll know that actually my mental health is something that's really important to me. And this year I just kind of neglected it a little bit, which is funny because I was actually quite consistent with therapy. It's just maybe I wasn't listening as much as I should have done, or I wasn't taking it on board as much as I should have done, or I was just in that headspace where I needed to just get through it at that time. And then now I can reflect. And I wanted to, come into a new year, and I wanted to bring the podcast back because actually for me, it was like a place to vent. And this is what I want this podcast to be, is like, being an adult is an absolute sham. It's a lie. I'm waiting for someone to tell me this is like an alternate universe. We should all be able to vent about it together. So I'd asked for a couple of ideas online, and there's loads. Like, you guys have sent me quite a few. A lot of them actually around like female hormones and how that impacts you, and how we get lied to all the time about, oh no, that's just normal. That's normal. Well, it doesn't feel fucking normal to me. And we'll come back to that. I think I want to dedicate like a full episode to exactly that. So this episode's really going to be a bit more about what's the new format of the pod. How's it going to be? We've got some like stable things we're going to do every week. We'll see how it works. We'll see how we get on with it. If it's not working, I'll mix it up. And then each week we'll have like a different topic and things that we'll go over, which essentially is just relevant to most people, and trying to make sure that we're covering off like all the crappy struggles that we all have. That is like what you talk to your mates about, but sometimes it's quite hard to talk to your friends in that moment. I know that's really hard for me. It's something that I'm working on and admitting this year, that actually when I need help or when I need to get stuff off my chest, I'm not the best at raising my hand and going, oh God, I'm really anxious at the moment, or I'm having a really crappy time. I tend to talk about it afterwards. Once it's all done and all sorted, and I'm like, oh my God, 2 weeks ago, I had like a full-blown mental breakdown. They're like, why didn't you message me? Why didn't you call me? And you kind of go, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I reach out? And I think it's trying to kind of get your head into a space where that feels natural if you've never done it before. So yeah, I think like I'll go into a little bit of detail of some of the things that have happened this year in terms of like my headspace and stuff. But I don't think anyone talks about how stressful moving house is. And again, like, bloody hell, first world problems, right? Being able to move house. But when you've lived somewhere for a really, really, really long time, you've got a lot of sentiment to that house. But also, I'm someone who really likes routine. or would I say routine? I don't think that's completely true, but like change maybe is a bit of a problem for me. So the idea of moving, great. The idea of like finding a new house, selling your house, buying another one, fine. I can get my head around it. But when you actually get into the process and you've got 10 or 15 people in your house viewing it, walking around, you're having the same conversation again and again, you're chasing solicitors, you're talking to estate agents, then you've got buyers that pull out, and then your seller's like, oh, well, are you definitely going to move? Or in our case, I might sell my house to my nephew instead now. And we kind of only found out like a couple of weeks before whether that was actually going to go ahead or not. So it was just like a really stressful time. And I didn't talk about that very much. I just kind of was like, well, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. Then you move in, you think it's going to be like the best day of your life. And it is to some level. It's super exciting. And then you get in and you realize, oh shit, we've got no flooring on 3 of the 4 rooms, and we've got no boiler, so no heating or hot water properly, because the boilers stopped working within like 2 days of moving in. The house hasn't been cleaned before we move in here, so you've got to like scrub it to an inch of its life. And these were all things for me that for some people, they might have just been able to kind of like push through and crack on with it. It was like a build up of like just stress. And I think at work, I was super, super busy. You know, I was wary that we hadn't recorded the podcast. I was like avoiding my Instagram. Oh, I'll just forget I've got that other Instagram page dedicated to a full podcast, and just pretending like, oh, we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. And then, you know, from Laura's side, things got a bit better her side, but then she was searching for a job, returning to work. And then I started decorating my house. Like I said, the boiler went, and it was a weird one actually, because I think what I found, and for anyone that's maybe got like absent parents or parents that had passed away, like moving house is one of those times where it kind of brings up like a lot of emotion for you, because I think it's the type of thing you do and have some form of support from a parent. So like maybe my dad was like a proper handyman, right? So for me, it was like my dad probably would have helped us like set some of the things up. And Jamie's dad was great and he was here, but actually that made it a little bit worse for me because it was a bit like, oh God, he's being such a good dad. Oh yeah, I remember I don't have one like that's, alive anymore. So it was just like a real process where I was just like, felt like I was just on the edge of like keeping it together all the time. And then you get past that initial stage of moving in, and then you've got to start decorating. And again, it just mucked my head up. I think it's having people come in and out. I've spoken a little bit about it in therapy, but having different people in the house every day, doing the decorating, doing this. I mean, Jamie done loads of it, but we had like a lot of workmen coming in and out, doing all different stuff. And I just felt like I was like being pulled from pillar to post. And in reality, on reflection, it actually wasn't that stressful. It was just me at that time was finding it super stressful. So I think when people are talking about moving house, like it's always the excitement side. It's always like, oh my God, how exciting. You're moving house. You've bought your first home, or you've bought your second home, or, you've got somewhere that's like gives you more space, which is definitely was the case for us. But I don't feel like we really kind of sit down and go, yeah, I'm buying a house and that's super exciting, but it's also really hard. And there's loads of admin and there's really difficult stuff that comes up with it. And living in a house where you don't have one room that's like completely set up and stable and everything, it's just tough. And luckily now we're kind of at a pause with like decorating the house. We've done loads in the house already. We've kind of got through so much of it early on, which I'm pleased about. But now we're at a pause with it all. And I thought, do you know what? It's a good time to kind of revisit the pod, bring things back, do it in the new year. Still planning a wedding. It's, don't get me wrong, I did a lot of it before we moved for exactly that reason. I didn't want to kind of be moving house and trying to plan a wedding and stuff like that. But now we're getting into that phase where it's like the small like details of it. And again, to be fair, I feel like one of my other friends who's getting married kind of gets this. Like, I'm so excited to marry Jamie. I'm so excited to do that part, which, if you're listening for the first time, is my fiance. But it's got to like all the tedious admin little things that you need to sort out and arrange, and have people booked flights because we're getting married abroad. Has this been done? Has that been done? And I feel like I'm in a good space of it at the moment. But again, I think people, because it's overall is such a positive thing, no one really talks about how much space it takes up in your brain and how much it can take it out of you. And I just feel like it's a little bit of a sham in terms of people make out that these kind of things are easy. And I'm really lucky. Like, Jamie has been, he's done loads with the house. He's done the majority of like the painting and decorating. I was more of like a project manager vibe. And like, he's helped with the wedding, and he's helped doing, planning with that. So I'm not doing it all on my own. But unless you're absolutely minted and can afford a full-blown wedding planner to take all of the stress off your hands, then it's a lot to do with having a full-time job as well. So yeah, guys, I've just been all over the place, really. And I just think it's just like there's always something. I feel like being an adult is just, it's like an ongoing series. It's like EastEnders. There's no end to it, right? It's just like the next episode, There's always something going on. So it's, as soon as you think you've got past one bit, then you kind of come back and go, oh, actually, now I've got to do this all over again, or I've got something else that I've got to move on to. And I am my worst enemy, because I can't sit still and I can't have nothing going on. So as much as I sit here and say this, actually, realistically, it's probably me that makes myself so busy and makes myself have all these problems to deal with. So, and I think we're mostly like that. But essentially what I'm saying is, I'm not really ashamed for putting the podcast down and pausing it for a moment, because sometimes that is just what you've got to do to get through a period of time. And if it wasn't this, it would have been something else. And, the year before my wedding, I was trying to not let it be the gym or my fitness or things like that, because that helps with my mental headspace as well. So it just something had to give, and it was this. But we're ready. We're back. I'm hoping that we can kind of just have some fun with it, keep it kind of same as always, dark humour, but some kind of deeper topics. And we'll see how we get on with just me. I don't know how I feel about that yet. It might be that I bring some guests, or I kind of nudge Laura at some point and say, are you ready to come back yet? Are you ready with your new job? Can you make some time with me? Laura's been doing a bit of travelling with work as well, which again just makes it harder in terms of timing. And we could have tried to do it online, and we did do one episode like that, but before we kind of took a break. But I don't know, it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel the same as when you're sat next to someone and you can have like a proper good chat with them. And like I say, she's just struggling with time. She's got 2 really young kids. So no, we'll see. Maybe we'll get some guests on. We'll see how we feel. I am in a new space, like I said. So this will be my little comfy zone. I'll tell you one thing, guys. I'm hoping editing the podcast with one voice saves me some time. So let's hope that that's the case. And yeah, just ready to get back into it. So with that in mind, you'll notice my little iPad here. I'm using it to kind of keep on track, because if any of you have listened to the previous episodes, you know this girl can ramble, she can lose track of thought, or train of thought, as you'd say, and it could go anywhere. But for episode 1, at least, the return of the pod, I'm trying to have some sort of stability in terms of how it's recorded and how it's going. So you might see me having a little look at my iPad, checking that my mic is actually recording, because that's a real panic of mine. So each week, what I want to do is talk about a couple of things that kind of pop up throughout my week before I record. And one of them, because I am always on TikTok, always. If you're wondering why I'm not like online anywhere, you can bet I'm either in the gym or scrolling on TikTok, which some would argue is not the healthiest habit. But I like it because actually I come across stuff that almost validates some of my feelings sometimes. I always say to Jamie, he says to me, stop doom scrolling. And I go, actually, for me, it's like a happy scroll because I've built this like perfect little algorithm of cute videos of animals, vegan food recipes, funny videos, and then like health, mindset, fashion. Like I don't really see any negative any negativity. So it's like a little happy space for me, actually. And I just want to be like, right, let's think about a TikTok that I've seen each week and share it with you guys. And like on the video, I'll put a little screenshot of it. But the one that I saw this week that really kind of struck a chord for me was one from a creator on TikTok called Rebecca.therapy. Now, I don't know if this track was, if the soundtrack to it was hers originally. I think it was because there was no like soundbite on it. And I'll try and like layer the clip in if I can. But essentially on it, it's like a video of her kind of in all different like places where she's like visibly upset. But it says, you can start again. It's not too late. You're not too lost. You didn't ruin it all. You just learned some hard things along the way. You can start over. And I thought, if there's any TikTok that is the epitome of what this episode should be about in terms of return, it's that one. Because I think it would have been so easy for me to go, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. I just ditched these guys, 9 months. I'm just going to do this and disappear it out forever, delete the Instagram page, delete the YouTube, delete the Spotify. But realistically, if any of you have like done any form of like self-care and you've had to like put something down or take a break, or you've committed to a hobby and you've had to like take a break from it because your mental load was too much, like congratulations, you're a human. Like that is what we should be doing, because otherwise you overload yourself, you hit a brick wall. And let me tell you, I have been so close to hitting so many brick walls, and it's something that I'm trying to work on, where I don't let myself get like a little inch away and then go, whoa, you nearly hit the brick wall again, you silly little bean. I'm trying to do it before that, and I need to really work on that, girls. So I'm hoping that you can kind of support. But like it's easy to go, oh, you know, and I think I posted last week like, oh, it's like cocoa self-care, like having a hot chocolate in the bath, like those things. Sometimes they make you feel better, like having a little matcha or a green juice or those kind of stuff. And other times you just need to take a break and breathe and have some space. And for me, it was more of the physical rather than being like a little like clean girl aesthetic well-being. Mine was like down in the dirty this year. It's like was in the midst of pure anxiety and just having to put stuff down and listen to, well, I say listen to my mind. I think my body told me more than my mind did that it was kind of time to take a break for some stuff. So yeah, sometimes your body forces you to rest when your brain doesn't quite register it. But yeah, that TikTok, for me, it was the epitome of that. It was like, don't, like, if you've burnt yourself out or you've taken a break from something, or maybe you've had a really bad time or a bad relationship or something's gone wrong, you can start again. There's no shame in that. You've learned something from it. You've learned some hard lessons, and you come back and you start over. And I feel like for me, 2026 is kind of the year of like zero embarrassment. Like embarrassment is that you've got to do it right to kick off. It could be embarrassing for me to sit here. I'm going to do some really, really like in-person content this year where I'm talking into a camera, and I'm going to have zero shame about it, because if it's what's going to help me talk about this stuff, which in its entirety, the whole point of this podcast is to make this a normalized conversation, talk about taboo stuff, talk about periods, talk about mental health, talk about if someone's bloody died, which let me tell you, when we were talking about grief and stuff, some people was like, oh, it's so morbid. It's so morbid. Well, it's the reality. All of us are going to die. All of us are going to have like friends and family that unfortunately pass away. So it's morbid until it impacts you. So yeah, we're keeping it taboo, but we're going full pelt all over different topics. And the whole point of having those different topics is when you get to this point in your life, which I'm sure many of you, if you're listening and have got involved, are probably at a similar stage, if you find this interesting, is like you feel like you should have it together. Like people are always kind of working towards having it together. Whereas I actually don't know if you ever properly do. I think it's a myth, essentially, is what I'm saying. I think having it together is a myth because on the face of things, I have it together, have a good job, albeit she's currently at risk of redundancy, guys. So if there's any recruiters out there, give me a shout. You know, that's one thing, right? On the face of it, I've got a good job and I may well keep that, but I've got a house, I've got a partner, I'm planning a wedding, all those kind of things. I've got a great stepson, got pets. I don't really have my shit together. Not all the time. Maybe it might be 70 to 80% of the time I do. Like I go to the gym, I'm into my fitness, but I don't feel like I have it together. So even when you do, or people assume you do, or people think you do, or, you know, in comparison to others you do, I don't know if you ever feel like 100% I've got my crap in order. Like, question me on it. I know it to a T. But I'm trying to trust in myself a little bit more, put some time in, make sure that I'm kind of making space to be more organized, be more planned, have really like firm goals. I'm going to do a bit of an episode on it, but I did a vision board for the first time ever. I did that yesterday. It took me like spent hours across the day. I did it with my stepson as well because he's at like a transitioning point where he's about to go to college, and set some really, really like strong goals for myself, but habits as well, like daily habits that ultimately will help me hit and achieve those goals. And I feel like that's what I need, like almost like I need objectives in life and I need to set myself tasks. And it was so funny because so many of my like feedback when I was asking myself questions and writing stuff down was all about having a lifestyle that is calmer. And I think that's because I'm so frantic. To all the people listening that have either got ADHD or PTSD or CPST, whatever it is, right? Complex post-traumatic stress, which shows itself in a very similar way to ADHD, which I think I've spoke about on another episode before, where me and my therapist have gone like, you know, you definitely have the traits of somebody with ADHD, but that can also be caused by trauma and stress. So it could be one, it could be both. Regardless, I've got a mind that would, you know, isn't neurotypical. So clearly, I've been living in such a way where I'm just frantic, even all the time. There's about 20 million thoughts going on. And should I do this? Should I start doing this? Should I do that? Should I do this? And the podcast could have been just one of the many hobbies that I've picked up over the years, got bored of and put down. And I really don't want it to be because it's something I'm passionate about. So I've got some really strong goals around the podcast, around my career, around my life, my relationships, finances, friends, everything, travel. So we'll kind of pick that up on another ep. But I just think it's kind of talk about the messy part. Don't, you know, I could always sit here and talk about my highlight reel of all the good things that have happened in the last 9 months, but like that's kind of boring and it's not really the truth. It's like, yeah, there's some really amazing things that have happened and I am so happy with those. I'm so happy with kind of where I am in my life, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't been difficult throughout that time or that I haven't struggled in that time in the last 9 or 10 months, because actually it's been one of the harder years for me. Even though I've achieved so much, that's kind of made it a bit harder. And then you've got the guilt of, should I be enjoying these things more? These are supposed to be really, really good times in my life. Moving house, planning a wedding. Why am I not maybe enjoying the process of that? And now I feel bad that I'm not enjoying the process of that. And actually, on reflection, I think most people are just bullshitting when they say they like love all of that kind of stuff, because it's stressful. And it wasn't until I kind of had a bit of I don't want to say like a breakdown, because it really wasn't, but I was having a really bad time with my anxiety. So I was speaking to Jamie about it. Obviously, waited until my anxiety was really, really bad before I said anything. And then he said, well, I'm really finding this hard as well. And I was like, well, why are we not telling each other we're finding it hard? Because we should just be telling each other, like, this is really stressful, because I think that would help, and then we can support each other. But naturally, because there's stuff that you should be enjoying, then you feel bad for finding it stressful and not enjoying it. And actually, I think that's just kind of the reality. And once it's done, you're like, oh my God, I'm so proud we've done all this stuff. And then it's really easy to forget about how stressful it was. But, you know, I want to live my life glass full, half full, or not half empty. So it's not about dwelling, it's just about admitting and making it easy for other people to connect with you and understand, when we're all just being a bit more honest about what it's like to be an adult, and that none of us really have everything together. And even when you've got 90%, that other 10% is still absolute shit show. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I don't know how long this episode is, but I just wanted to do like a brief episode back. We'll have a bit of a topic each week. We're going to have a TikTok of the week that has inspired me or made me feel some kind of way. And then we'll have a main topic. So like the topic this week was like, it's a myth to have it, of having it all together as an adult. And I think we've done like the surface level of that, and then we can get into a bit more granular detail. But I wanted to leave the week on a thought of the week and a send off. And this is a little bit of a like, cut me some slack, guys. And I'm hoping it fits for some of your situations as well. But pausing isn't quitting, it's just breathing. And I've paused, I've breathed, and now I'm back. So thank you for joining. I hope you like the new format of No Time to Cry. We're going to make some space this year in 2026 to cry some tears and get some emotions out. But we're also going to have some fun with it. So I hope you join us next week. I hope you've had a nice recap. Tell me what's been going on in your lives in the last 9 to 10 months. Send me some messages. Send me some ideas of things you want to hear me speak about, any guests that you would love to kind of have us on, or people you'd want to hear more from. Big shout out to Paula, because she's still helping with content as well, so you might see from her at some point. But give us a follow, give us a like, and I will see you all soon, I promise. Or it could be 9 months, who knows what happens next week. See you soon.